Hi, this is Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my classroom. Today I'm going to have a demonstration on negative painting. I'm going to take it to a different level. In fact, I'm going to take it down. I'm going to give you 5 stages of doing a painting. And each stage is going to take it deeper in depth and another level of color and value. And it's a little flower petals, but you're going to see it'd be a very interesting way to do a little painting. So I got the film already done of the process, but I'll talk you through it and show you how I did it. So let's go over to look at the painting table, and I'll talk you through it. We'll start out with the dot spray bottle with water in it to wet down the paper before I start painting. My supplies I'm going to use right now is a 1/4 sheet Gemini watercolor paper, a 2-inch bristle brush, and the colors I'm mixing up are yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and quinacridone violet. This mixture will give me a nice light rose color to tone the paper and give me a light value to get started. Make sure I cover the paper completely with that first wash. Now let that dry before I get started again. Now this is the design sketch for stage number 1. It's just the first petal, the main petal, that's going to go into the painting. So I did a very light drawing there on the paper. And I'm mixing a darker mix of the same colors I had before. Yellow ochre, quinacridone violet, and burnt sienna. Now I want a darker value, so when I paint behind, that first color will paint the negative colors behind, they'll be darker. I'm using a number 16 Holbein brush, round brush, for painting. I have those available on my website. This is a very nice brush, holds lots of pigment, and does a nice detail with that nice sharp point. Here I'm painting the negative space around that first petal. And this is the first step. You get the colors down. I'm following the light drawing that I have on that watercolor paper, and I follow on through. I just follow the sketch that I put down on the paper. Now you'll notice the negative painting around the drawing shows the shape of the positive painting. The positive shape is the petals. Now here I pick up a little water, and now I'm blending the outside edges. Just a little water, a little moist water on the brush, blending out the colors for the rest of the paper. Still want to keep a fairly light value. And then I pick up the 2-inch brush and spread out some of that paint even more. Give me a nice even wash. Alright, now stage 2, I'm going to add some more flowers. Here's the planting sketch. I've added 2 more shapes behind that first shape, which are 2 more petals to be added. So I did a nice light pencil drawing behind, and now I'm going to mix a dark mixture of colors, the same colors as before, darker mix of yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and quinacridone violet. A little more pigment gives me a darker mix. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to use that same brush, number 16 round. I'm going to paint around all the shapes to create that negative painting and to bring out the shapes of the new design. And you can see here, this color is a lot darker, which is the negative color behind the positive shapes that are in front. So the negative painting is going to be a darker value behind the positive shapes. And you paint all the spaces that are there that are in the drawing. The original petal gets painted around, and the new petals get painted around. So this darker color will make all the shapes, all the positive shapes, come forward. So we're painting in the background behind the positive shapes. Now keep that value as equal as possible. I'm picking a bigger brush, this is a 1/2 inch flat brush I'm using to spread out the pigment. This is the planning sketch for stage 3. Now you can see here I've mounted it on a canvas board and blended in all the outside edges with the same value. Now I mixed in a darker mix of the quinacridone violet, burnt sienna, and yellow ochre, along with some hooker's green to make it nice and dark. And I've drawn in the new shapes with a light pencil drawing. And there you can see the drawing up there as a reference as I paint in the background shapes. So stage 3, I'm painting in another layer with darker color, and I'm painting around all these shapes that I have in before so that the background is consistent as far as value is concerned. And I'm using the number 16 Holbein round paintbrush, which holds lots of pigment. It has a nice sharp point for going in between those dark, close edges. And I'm following the sketch that I've drawn in on the paper, which I have referenced up there on the right, top right. You can see the shapes that I'm painting around. And I have a very light pencil drawing that I'm following on the paper. Adding in that dark color around all the shapes to give me that negative painting, to bring out the positive shapes of the design. I have a lot more area to cover now with this new color because I have more elements here on the painting. The best idea is to take your time and put your brush marks in carefully. Double check the values. Careful around your edges. Keep the edges nice and clean. You see I'm using a smaller brush to go in between. What I do, a smaller brush, I'm adding water, and then the larger brush I've got the paint in. So I'm using 2 brushes here. And here I'm picking up a bigger brush to cover that large negative area over here on the side. Now I'm going down here at the bottom to finish up the last couple shapes with the large round brush. There's the smaller brush I'm using for in between, adding water. Stage 3 is completed. Going into stage 4, I've added some more colors. I've added some stems this time. But now that there's a difference because the background is getting darker, I'm going to use a white charcoal pencil to draw in the outlines so I can see them. So I'm going to do a pencil drawing. This is freehand from my design, and there's the sketch up there on the right, top right. So I'm adding in those extra leaves and stems with a white charcoal pencil so I can follow the shapes for the negative painting exercise. So So I'm freehanding in those shapes in the background. I'm going to use the same thing I did before in stage 4 with darker value. You can see here the paint mix is a little darker. I've added in a little more Hooker's green in with more pigment. And you can see here that the background colors are much darker. And I'm going to follow the design. There's a sketch up there on the top right, filling in the added flower shapes, filling in the negative value around those new flower shapes. So this negative painting exercise, you have to take your time. You have to plan ahead about which step you're on so that you don't get lost in the painting that you're doing. But I had a design for each step so I knew where I was in the process. What I did was I took the pencil drawing that I started with on my design, and for each level or each stage I filled it in with ink pen so that the ink pen was my drawing I was working on at that stage. That completes stage number 4. Stage 5 I'm going to add in now. I'm going to switch around. I'm going to add in some positive shapes, which here I've marked in red. Now these are background leaves and some more stem, but I'm going to paint them in as positive shapes, which means I'm going to draw in the shapes of them, but then I'm going to paint those shapes in with a darker color. So I'll use a white charcoal pencil again to mark in the shapes on the dark background. So the white charcoal pencil comes in handy for marking in a dark background or remarking a design that you may have covered up with paint. So here I'm marking out the leaf shapes and a few more stems that I will paint in with positive value with a darker color. Again, I'm freehanding it from the sketch up on the upper right, freehanding in the design sketch. And if you'll notice, the lines I'm adding in are marked in red. So those are the new marks that I'm adding into the painting for the positive shapes, the ones marked in red. Now freehand the last couple shapes of those leaves. Now repeat the process. Darker values, paint the positive shapes. You can see here the color now is really dark. More pigment, added more colors, more pigment. Give me a darker value. Now I'm painting in those positive shapes behind the flower petals. This gives me a little more interest to the design. The depth in the painting now is based on all those negative spaces I filled in before with darker values. Now this last darker value puts even more dimension or more depth and nice contrast around the impact area, which would probably be that light flower. I continue on with the background shapes. I got a few more to fill in. Continue on. It helps fill in some of that negative space and also gives it more interesting shapes in the background. And all those shapes are different sizes. They got a variety of different shapes. Again, gives you more interest to the painting. And with the dark value there, that also gives you a nice contrast with those lighter values in front. So there's two reasons for putting in a dark background shape behind a nice light shape. So this painting has a little bit of everything. It has light values, has middle values, dark values, has a variety of shapes, a variety of colors, the variety of values, especially dark and light. Okay, we're done at this stage of the game. Then I'm going to add in some shadows. Now the shadows will give me a little more interest in my impact area. I'm using two brushes. I'm using the flat brush to add the paint, which would be a light gray with a mixture of ultramarine and burnt sienna. It gives me a light gray. And I'm using the round brush to add the water, and then adding the paint with the flat brush. So the two brushes used together. You can see me holding them in one hand. That's quite a trick there. Two brushes in one hand. Water with the round brush and paint with the flat brush. And I think the shadows gives the impact area a little more interest, a little more design, to keep your eyes interested in what's going on, and a little more shape to the final product. And that shadow gives the flowers a little dimension in the leaf pattern. Now, I still got a final touch. I'm going to add in some flower centers. I've mixed up a little bit of Hooker's Green with burnt sienna, and I'm adding a couple little touches to the center of the flowers, give them a little design change, a little added punch to the painting. Now we'll put a mat around to take a look at the final product. And I think it worked out well. And I called this painting Flower Petals. Now here I took the masking tape off the edges. You see it gives me a nice little matte edge, and I think the paint turned out real good. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and give me a thumbs up. It helps my ratings on YouTube. See you in the next video.